So my name's Jaime Deverall. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Flychain. And what we're doing is we're building the financial operating system for small to medium-sized healthcare providers. And specifically what that means is our first product is working capital for healthcare providers, especially when they're in that sub $25 million in annual revenue, and they experience a lag in insurance payments. And that puts tremendous pressure on their cash flow, especially when they're trying to grow. So our first product is a working capital solution that allows them to basically get paid upfront on their insurance claims, or more generally, just have a line of credit there if they ever want to grow, expand to a new location, hire more staff, etc. So we started out with this financing piece, and now we're building a bunch of different financial tools to just help providers manage their cash flow better, especially in a business where it takes 2 months to get paid for the work that you do. Turns out managing cash flow is like super critical to running a business in this space. And so we're really out there to support those independent, small to medium-sized healthcare providers. Yeah, that's Flychain. Co-founder Ethan, his dad was a dentist, and over PPP, maybe 3 years ago or more, Ethan was looking through his dad's financials and just realized, super smart guy, but was not really interested in the most up-to-date practices or keeping things super documented, and was leaving a lot on the table, frankly. Like, for example, wasn't using treasury management, wasn't really following up on claims that had been rejected, wasn't paying himself sometimes because he didn't have enough in the bank to make the full payroll. So he realized look, a lot like his dad especially, and this is not just for his dad, most providers want to spend time with patients, don't want to spend time doing the back office admin financial stuff. So that was the kernel, and then we just spent a year talking to a bunch of different healthcare providers, especially the small to medium-sized healthcare providers, and just realized that recurring theme of the best that we've seen, the best in class is tracking things in a spreadsheet, right? Like tracking all drug expenses, payroll in a spreadsheet, and then trying to predict when claims are gonna pay, so when revenue is gonna come. And that was the best that we saw, right? Like in the worst case, a lot of providers didn't even realize when their bank balance hit zero, which is quite sad actually, because they run out of money and don't even realize it. So we're okay, a proper fractional CFO for healthcare here is needed, and that's what we wanna be. This is not necessarily new insight, but people think being a founder is, you're always whiteboarding and strategizing, and it's in quote unquote sexy, right? And there is an element of that. There's an element of you're testing you're always thinking about new products and running it by customers. But there's a lot of at the early stage, extremely, just run-of-the-mill stuff to make the experience really great for your customers, and really that doing things that don't scale truly applies, because we've had customers, just because we've been so hands-on and proactive, they've just been you guys saved our business, this was such a great experience, I'm gonna refer you to all my other customers. And we couldn't have done that if we weren't doing these simple, basic, unsexy things that were, maybe we'll try to automate in the future. Don't know how yet, but basically I think a lot of run-of-the-mill, just trying to delight your customers, doesn't have to be super fancy or anything, can really move the needle, especially for those early customers. Fall in love with the problem. It's really, you need to really believe in the impact that you can create by solving the problem. And best is if you have seen others experience multiple times, or even if you personally experience it yourself, then it's just gonna drive you. It's just gonna keep after the most inspirational thing for me has been when I hear providers being you saved our business, then I'm okay, that's a dopamine hit like nothing else, and then that keeps you going, right? And I can only imagine, I'm not coming from a healthcare background, but if I was a healthcare provider and somebody had my solution, that would make me feel really good, right? So being in love with the problem is probably the most important piece of advice. Meetups, fantastic. Just the regular events. I think we've met a few different partners and customers at these events, just pretty serendipitously, right? It was just hey, you're building healthcare, we're building healthcare, let's find a way to work together. So there's that. There's also I love the the feedback from other founders in the Slack threads. So like, I think Scott had a thread at one point about like runway in this market. And for us, it was like really helpful when we thought about our burn, right? Instead of like, after we raised our seed, instead of going and hiring a bunch of people, we didn't, because we read Scott's thing about like, your odds dramatically improve like if you're just around for longer. So that was like transformative in like how we run the business. And that was just from like a Slack thread, right? And then like seeing other founders comment on that Slack thread. So Slack's pretty transformative there. And then like, I mean, more tactically, you guys are just so well connected. So like in our seed round as well, just like having you guys in our, you know, on our side was like pretty helpful in like for other investors as well. That's more like for the fundraising process, but that was super helpful. And yeah, I'm just excited to see how else I'm sure there's so much more magic that comes from having these people together and all these great founders together in one community. I'm sure I'm just scratching the surface. Healthcare related founder events. So like actually right after this, I'm going to the Pepper Happy Hour in FiDi. We meet just so many customers and partners through that, because it's kind of casual. Like, so I would say that's predominantly how I use like the startup community in New York. And then I have some friends as well that are not in healthcare, but it's just more generally like bonding over the founder experience. New York's pretty good. Like it's definitely been better. Like, I don't know, Twitter is always like SF or like New York, and it's just like New York's pretty good. Like there are a lot of founders here, especially in healthcare and fintech, like, which we are in the intersection of. There's a lot of founders here. So yeah, I can't complain. The idea of doing a lot of things that don't scale in order to delight those early customers. And these are often unsexy, unfancy things, maybe simple things. Like, for example, we check their balance before collecting from their bank account, so it doesn't have a non-sufficient funds, right? And then if their balance doesn't support the collection, we push out the collection by a week. Doing those simple things, kind of manual, to be honest, but our customers have been delighted by them. And they often say like, we've never gotten better rates from anyone. You guys are so proactive, and we love working with you. And so the reason why I say that's counterintuitive is people think that going into startup is like, I'll do all the sexy work and delegate all the non-strategy operations to somebody else. It's like, that's not the case at all. In like the early stages, like you're doing everything, and actually doing that stuff, I think helps you then bring in other people, because like you've actually done it, and then you can like really bring in other people to give you leverage. So I think doing things that don't scale is actually really, really crucial to delighting customers. Hi, I'm Jaime Deverall. I'm the co-founder and CTO at Flychain, and we're a everywhere portfolio company.